The Great Hall of the Galactic Concord was filled with tension. Representatives from 12 different species sat in their designated areas, each group watching the others with careful eyes. Ambassador of the stood near the central platform, her pale blue skin shimmering under the artificial lights. She had served as a diplomat for nearly 60 years, but she had never felt fear like this. The Emperor rose from his throne-like seat. His massive scaled body cast a shadow across the hall. His voice was deep and filled with anger. They have taken 3 of our mining colonies. This is an act of war. Across the hall, the High Commander clicked his mandibles together. His insect-like species had always been hungry for resources. Your colonies were built on planets that belonged to us first. We simply took back what was ours. Closed her 4 eyes and took a slow breath. Her people were psychic, able to sense emotions from others. Right now, she felt waves of hatred filling the room. The peace that had lasted for 3,000 years was about to break. "Please," she said, stepping forward. "We must find another way. War will destroy everything our ancestors built." The Emperor laughed. It was a cold and terrible sound. "Your ancestors were weak. They chose peace because they feared strength. We do not share that fear." Within hours, the declaration was made. The Empire declared war on the collective. Other species quickly chose sides. Some joined the for protection. Others allied with the for promised resources. The great unraveling had begun. Returned to her private chambers on the station. Her hands were shaking. She poured herself a drink and sat by the window, watching ships already beginning to move toward battle positions. How had it come to this? 3,000 years of peace, gone in a single day. Her communicator chimed. It was her grandfather calling from there. His face appeared on the screen, old and wrinkled but still sharp with intelligence. "I felt the disturbance," he said. "War has come." "Yes, grandfather, I failed to stop it." He shook his head slowly. No one could have stopped it. This was always coming. The Concord was built on fear, not true peace, and fear always fades with time. Frowned, "What do you mean?" Her grandfather was quiet for a long moment. His eyes seemed to look at something far away, something from ancient memory. "There is a reason our ancestors created the Concord. There is a reason they chose peace, even when they had the power to conquer. They remembered something, something that terrified them more than any war." "What are you talking about?" "The sleepers," he whispered. "The ones who came before all of us. The ones we locked away and tried to forget." Felt a chill run through her body. She had heard stories as a child, tales of ancient beings who walked among the stars before any other species learned to fly. But they were just myths, legends to scare children. "Those are just stories," she said. "No," her grandfather's voice was firm. "They are real, and their world still exists, sealed away at the edge of known space. Our ancestors built barriers around it. They erased all records. They made it forbidden to even speak of them." "Why, what were they?" Her grandfather's eyes met hers through the screen. "They were called humans, and they were the most dangerous species the galaxy has ever known." Far across the galaxy, the war spread like fire. Within weeks, 17 star systems were burning. Ships exploded in the darkness of space. Planets were bombarded. Millions died on both sides, and still the fighting continued. They were losing. Their fleet was smaller than the Armada, and they were being pushed back toward their core worlds. High Commander stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching another of his ships explode on the... "We cannot win this war through normal means," his advisor said. "They are too strong." His compound eyes reflected the flames of distant explosions. "Then we must find something that is not normal." He turned to his navigation officer. "Set a course for the Forbidden Zone, the sealed world." The officer's antennae twitched with fear. "Commander, that area is restricted by the highest laws of the Concord. No one has gone there in thousands of years." "The Concord is dead," said coldly, and I will not let my people die with it. The legends say there is power on that world, power that could turn the tide of any war. We will find it and use it." The fleet changed course, leaving the main battle behind. They traveled for days through empty space, passing warning beacons that had been placed long ago. Each beacon broadcast the same message in every known language: "Turn back. Do not approach. Death awaits." Ignored them all. Finally, they reached the edge of the forbidden zone. Before them floated a planet of blue and green, beautiful and alive. Around it hung hundreds of ancient defense platforms, dormant and covered in space dust. No one had come here in so long that the automatic systems had shut down. "Scan the planet," ordered. The readings came back strange. There were structures beneath the surface, massive underground cities that seemed to be in some kind of low-power state, and there were life signs, thousands of them, maybe millions, all in some form of deep sleep. "What is this place?" the advisor whispered. "This is Earth," said, "the of the humans, and we are going to wake them up." The ships descended through the atmosphere. They landed in what had once been a great city, now overgrown with forests and flowers. Nature had reclaimed this world, making it wild and beautiful. Deep beneath the surface, in vaults that had been sealed for, something changed. The systems detected the alien presence above. Protocols that had waited in silence for thousands of years began to activate. Lights flickered on in endless rows of chambers. Machines hummed to life, checking vital signs, preparing revival sequences. Frost began to melt from glass pods that held sleeping figures inside. In one pod, a man's eyes moved beneath closed lids. His fingers twitched. His heart, which had barely beaten for so long, began to pump faster. Commander Vance was waking up. And with him, humanity was returning to a galaxy that had tried so hard to forget them. Above, the stars continued to burn with war, but something had changed. Something old and powerful was stirring. They had come looking for a weapon. They had found something far more dangerous. They had found hope. The first breath hurt. Vance gasped as air filled his lungs for the first time in what felt like forever. His body was cold, so cold that his bones ached. He tried to move, but his muscles refused to obey. The glass cover of his pod slid open with a soft hiss, and warm air touched his face. Slowly, his eyes adjusted to the dim light. He saw a metal ceiling above him, covered with lights that blinked in steady patterns. The sound of other pods opening filled his ears. He was not alone. A voice spoke from somewhere nearby. It was calm and artificial. "Revival complete. Welcome back, Commander Vance. You have been in stasis for approximately 4,700 years." 4,000 years. The number seemed impossible. Tried to remember why he had entered the pod in the first place. The memories came back slowly, like dreams fatting after waking. There had been a decision, a great council. Humanity had chosen to sleep rather than continue a war that would have destroyed everything. He sat up carefully. His body felt strange and weak, but it was already recovering. That was one thing about humans: they adapted, they survived. It was what they did best. Around him, thousands of other pods were opening. Men and women of all ages were waking up, confused and frightened. Children cried for parents who reached for them with trembling hands. The vault was enormous, stretching farther than he could see. "What happened?" someone asked. "Why are we awake?" Found his feet and stood. His military training was coming back to him. In times of chaos, someone needed to take charge. "Everyone stay calm," he called out. "Check on your families. Help those who need it. We will find answers soon." It took hours to organize the newly awakened humans. Discovered that the vault was one of many, all connected by underground tunnels. The automated systems had kept them alive and sleeping waiting for the right moment to wake them. But what had triggered the revival? The answer came when a young technician managed to access the surface sensors. "Commander," she said, her voice shaking, There are ships above us, alien ships. They landed near the old city. Aliens felt a strange mix of emotions. He had known alien species before the sleep. Humanity had traveled among the stars, met other civilizations, built relationships with them. But those relationships had always been complicated. Other species reacted to humans in strange ways. Some feared them, some tried to destroy them. That was why humanity had chosen to sleep. Their presence in the galaxy caused chaos. Every species that met them became obsessed with them in one way or another. Wars were fought over human favor. Civilizations collapsed when humanity had looked at the destruction they caused simply by existing, and they had made the hardest choice possible. They had removed themselves from the equation. "I need a team," said. "We are going to meet our visitors." They emerged from the underground vault into a world transformed. The city that remembered was gone, replaced by towering forests and clear streams. Nature had healed in their absence. Birds sang in the trees. Animals watched them with curious eyes, unafraid of these strange two-legged creatures. The ships were not hard to find. They sat in a clearing a few kilometers away, their dark hulls reflecting the sunlight. Led his team toward them, unarmed and unhurried. He had learned long ago that showing fear only made things worse. The soldiers saw them coming. They raised their weapons and formed a defensive line. Their commander, a tall insect-like being with gleaming compound eyes, stepped forward. "Stop there," the commander ordered. "Identify yourselves." Raised his hands to show he carried no weapons. "My name is Vance. This is our world. We mean you no harm." The commander seemed confused. He had expected many things, but not this. Not calm greeting and peaceful words. "You are the humans, the ones from the old stories." "We are human, yes, though I do not know what stories you have heard about us." "Stories of monsters," the commander said. "Stories of beings who conquered the galaxy and destroyed all who opposed them." Felt sadness wash over him. So that was what had become of their memory. They had tried so hard to be kind, to help other species grow, and in the end they were remembered as monsters. Perhaps that was fitting. Perhaps that was what they deserved. "We never conquered anyone," he said quietly, "but I understand why you might believe that." The commander did not lower his weapon. "I am High Commander. I came here seeking power to win a war. My people are dying. The Empire is destroying us. I need weapons. I need soldiers. I need whatever made your kind so feared." "We have no weapons for you," said. "We have no soldiers to give. We chose to sleep so that we would not fight anymore." His mandibles clicked with frustration. "Then you are useless to me." He turned to his soldiers. "Take them. If they will not help willingly, perhaps they will help when forced." What happened next became a legend that would spread across the galaxy. The soldiers fired their weapons. Energy beams struck the humans directly. By all known science, they should have died instantly. But they did not die. Their bodies absorbed the energy, adapted to it, and healed within seconds. The humans stood unchanged, looking at them with something like pity in their eyes. Ordered heavier weapons, explosives, chemicals, nothing worked. The humans did not fight back. They simply stood there, enduring everything thrown at them, refusing to fall. It was not strength that terrified it was patience. Finally stopped the attack. His soldiers were exhausted and afraid. The humans had not moved, had not raised a hand in anger. They had simply survived. "What are you?" whispered. Stepped forward. There was no anger in his voice, only tiredness. "We are what remains of a species that learned the hardest lesson the universe has to teach. We learned that being powerful is not enough. We learned that strength without wisdom only brings suffering." He looked up at the sky, toward the stars he had not seen in thousands of years. "You say there is a war. You say your people are dying. I am sorry for your pain, but we will not kill for you. We will not destroy for you." "Then what will you do?" Was silent for a long moment. He thought about all the years of sleep, all the hope that humanity had carried into those pods. They had believed that the galaxy would grow and mature without them. They had believed that peace would come if they simply stepped aside. But they had been wrong. The galaxy had not found peace. It had only found new reasons to fight. "We will do what we should have done long ago," said. "We will talk." He activated a communication device that had been built into his suit. It was ancient technology, but it still worked. His voice broadcast across every frequency, reaching every ship and station in the galaxy. "This message is for all species of the Galactic Conquered. My name is Vance. I am a human. We are awake. We are not here to fight. We are not here to conquer. We are coming to talk. We hope you will listen." The message ended, stared at with something new in his eyes. It was not quite fear. It was not quite hope. It was something in between. Across the galaxy, the war paused. Every species stopped what they were doing and listened. The humans had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The message from the humans spread across the galaxy like fire. Within hours, every species had heard it. Within days, the war had frozen in place. Ships that had been firing at each other moments before now hung motionless in space, their crews glued to their communication screens. Ambassador stood in the archives of her, surrounded by ancient texts that had been sealed for thousands of years. Her grandfather had given her the access codes before he died, just 2 days after the war began. His last words had been simple: "Find the truth. The galaxy will need it." The sealed archives were deep underground, protected by doors that required psychic keys to open. Pressed her hand against the final lock and let her mind flow into it. The door recognized her bloodline and slid open with a groan of ancient machinery. Inside, she found records that changed everything she thought she knew about the universe. The humans had not been conquerors, they had been parents. According to the oldest texts, humans were the first species to develop space travel. When the universe was young and empty, they had spread across the stars alone. They had searched for other intelligent life and found none. For millions of years, they had been the only thinking beings in existence. The loneliness had nearly destroyed them. So they had made a choice. If the universe would not give them companions, they would create companions themselves. Over countless generations, humans had guided the evolution of primitive species on hundreds of worlds. They had nudged genetics, provided resources, protected young civilizations from cosmic disasters. Every species in the Galactic Conquered existed because humans had helped them grow. They had been simple reptiles until human scientists altered their ancestors. They had been mindless insects until human intervention gave them intelligence. Even's own people, though, had received their psychic abilities as a gift from human geneticists who wanted to create beings who could truly understand others. Humans had not ruled their creations. They had loved them. They had watched with pride as each species built cities, developed art, and reached for the stars. They had stepped back as their children grew, wanting them to find their own paths. But something had gone wrong. The created species learned of their origins. Some were grateful, others were angry. They had not asked to be made. They had not chosen to be the children of another race. Resentment grew. Wars were fought, not against the humans but over them. Species competed for human attention. They killed each other trying to prove they were the most worthy children. Entire civilizations collapsed when humans showed favor to their rivals. The galaxy burned with jealousy and rage. The humans had watched in horror. They had tried to help, but their help only made things worse. Every time they intervened, they created new problems. Every time they stepped back, someone accused them of abandonment. There was no way to win. Finally, they had made the hardest decision any parent could make. They had let go. The humans returned to Earth. They erased themselves from galactic history. They built the quarantine around their world and entered their long sleep, hoping that without them, their children would learn to live together. closed the ancient book with trembling hands. Tears ran down her pale blue face. All the wars, all the hatred, all the suffering of the past 3,000 years. It had happened because the children had been abandoned, because they had forgotten why they were created, because they had forgotten that they were family. Far from Vance prepared for his journey. They had given him a ship. It was not a gift of kindness but one of curiosity. High Commander wanted to see what would happen when humans met the galaxy again. 4 other humans traveled with. They were volunteers, people who had been diplomats and teachers in the time before the sleep. None of them carried weapons. None of them wanted to fight. Their ship was small and simple. It had no shields, no guns, nothing that could be seen as a threat. As they flew toward the heart of the galaxy, they were surrounded by warships from every species. Cruisers flew on one side. Carriers flew on the other. Behind them came ships from and a dozen other races. No one attacked. No one spoke. They simply followed, watching the small human vessel as if it were the most important thing in the universe. In his command chair, looked at the fleet around him. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers, all of them had stopped fighting just to see what the humans would do. The weight of that attention pressed down on him like a physical force. "Are you afraid?" asked one of the other humans on board. She had been a psychologist before the sleep, someone who understood how minds worked. "Terrified," admitted. "But not of them. I am afraid of failing them. We slept because we thought it would help, but they are still fighting. They are still suffering. Maybe we were wrong to leave." Placed her hand on his shoulder. "We cannot change what was done. We can only try to do better now." The ship traveled for 3 days. Finally, it reached the neutral zone between the fleets. This was where the war had paused, where 2 great armadas faced each other with weapons ready. Thousands of ships filled the space around them, bristling with enough firepower to destroy planets. And in the center of it all, one small human vessel came to a stop. Opened a channel to all ships. "We are here. We request a meeting with the leaders of all factions. We wish to talk. We wish to understand. We wish to help if help is possible." For a long moment there was silence. Then, one by one, the faction leaders agreed. The Emperor would come. The High Commander would come. Representatives from every species in the conquered would attend. As the leaders prepared to board a neutral station for the meeting, made her own journey. She had shared her discoveries with no one. The truth was too important to trust to electronic messages. She needed to deliver it herself. She arrived at the station just as the other leaders were gathering. When she saw the humans waiting in the meeting room, she felt her breath catch in her throat. They looked so ordinary, so fragile. 2 arms, 2 legs, soft skin, no claws or scales or shells. How could such simple creatures have created the entire galaxy? Then looked at her and she understood. His eyes held thousands of years of memory, thousands of years of love and loss and hope. He was ancient in a way that had nothing to do with his body. He was old in his soul. "You know the truth," he said quietly. It was not a question. "Yes," whispered. "I found the archives. I know what you did for us, what you sacrificed." Nodded slowly. There was no pride in his expression, only sadness. "We tried our best. It was not enough." "It was more than enough," said. "We simply forgot, but I remember now. And I think it is time for everyone to remember." She turned to face the gathering leaders, the ancient records clutched in her hands. The truth would be painful. It would challenge everything these species believed about themselves. But it was necessary. The galaxy had spent 3,000 years as orphans, fighting over scraps and old grudges. It was time for the children to learn where they came from. And perhaps, finally, it was time for them to grow up. The meeting chamber fell silent as the last leader took their seat. 12 species, ancient enemies, now sat together in the same room. The Emperor towered over the others, his scaled body radiating heat and power. The High Commander sat motionless, his compound eyes watching everything. Represented her her blue skin pale with nervousness. And at one end of the table sat 5 humans. They looked so small compared to the others, so fragile. The Emperor could have crushed them with one hand. The soldiers could have torn them apart in seconds, yet every being in the room felt afraid. Vance stood and looked at each leader in turn. He did not speak immediately. He simply watched them, his eyes moving from face to face, seeing things that others could not see. "Thank you for coming," he said finally. His voice was soft, but it filled the room. "I know this is difficult. Many of you have been at war for months. Some of you have lost friends, family, soldiers. The pain is fresh. The anger is real." The Emperor snorted. Smoke curled from his nostrils. "We did not come here for speeches, human. We came because we wanted to see if the legends were true. We wanted to see if you were as dangerous as our ancestors claimed." "And what do you think?" asked. The Emperor was quiet for a moment. His golden eyes studied carefully. "I think you are more dangerous than I imagined, but not in the way I expected." "We are not here to threaten anyone," said. "We are not here to demand anything. We are here to listen, to understand." He gestured to the empty center of the table. "Please, tell us why you fight." The question hung in the air. It seemed too simple, too childish. But no one laughed. No one dismissed it. Instead, they found themselves actually thinking about the answer. The High Commander spoke first. "We fight because we must. Our worlds are running out of resources. Our people are hungry. If we do not take what we need, we will die. They took our colonies," he continued, his mandibles clicking with anger. "They pushed us out of systems we had lived in for generations. What choice did we have?" The Emperor slammed his fist on the table. "Those systems were ours first. Your ancestors stole them from us during the third expansion. We were simply taking back what belonged to us." "Belonged to you?" The commander stood, his wings buzzing with rage. "Your empire has more territory than any other species. You have resources to spare, but still you wanted more. Still you took from those who had less." The argument continued. Each species had their grievances. Each had old wounds that had never healed. Borders had been drawn and redrawn. Treaties had been broken. Trust had been destroyed. "Let them speak." He did not interrupt. He did not judge. He simply listened, his face showing nothing but patient attention. The other humans did the same, watching and absorbing every word. Hours passed. The leaders grew tired of shouting. Their anger faded into exhaustion, and still the humans listened. Finally, the room fell quiet. Everything had been said. Every complaint had been voiced. Every accusation had been made, and nothing had changed. The Emperor looked at, "Well, you have heard us. What wisdom do you offer? What solution do you have for problems that have lasted for thousands of years?" Was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was gentle. "I have no solution. I am not wise enough to fix your problems. No one is." The Emperor laughed bitterly. "Then why are we here? Why did we stop fighting just to talk in circles?" "Because talking is better than killing," said simply. "And because I think you already know what is really wrong. You do not need me to tell you." He stood and walked around the table slowly. "High Commander, you say your people are hungry, but your ancestors were hungry too. They survived because other species helped them. They learned to share instead of steal. What changed?" Looked away. He had no answer. Continued to the Emperor. "Emperor, you say those systems belong to your people, but your empire already controls more worlds than you can use. Your people do not need more territory. So why do you keep taking?" The Emperor's scales darkened with something like shame. "Because that is what empires do," he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. "Is it?" asked. "Or is it because you are afraid? Afraid that if you stop growing, you will become weak? Afraid that others will see you as less than you are?" The Emperor did not answer, but his hands, which had been clenched into fists, slowly relaxed. Returned to his seat. "I am not here to judge you. I have no right to judge anyone. My people made terrible mistakes. We thought we could guide the galaxy to peace by removing ourselves from it. We were wrong. You suffered because of our absence, just as you suffered because of our presence." He looked around the table. "But I see something that gives me hope. I see beings who are capable of incredible things. You have built civilizations that span the stars. You have created art and music and science that would have amazed my ancestors. You are not the primitive creatures we once guided. You have grown beyond anything we could have imagined." Felt tears forming in her eyes. She remembered the ancient records, the truth about humanity's role in creating the galaxy's species. She wanted to share it, to tell everyone what she had learned. But looking at, she understood that he already knew, and he had chosen not to mention it. He was not trying to remind them that they were children. He was trying to show them that they were adults. "The war can continue," said. "We cannot stop you. We will not even try. But before you return to your ships and your weapons, I want to ask each of you one question." He paused, letting the silence build. "What do you want your people to become?" The question struck like lightning. It was so simple, yet so profound. Every leader in the room had spent their lives thinking about what they wanted to take, what they wanted to protect, what they wanted to destroy. No one had asked them what they wanted to create. The Emperor spoke first. His voice was different now, softer. "I want my people to be remembered. I want them to matter. I am afraid that if we do not conquer, we will be forgotten. We will disappear into the darkness between stars, and no one will know we ever existed." Nodded, there was no judgment in his eyes, only understanding. That is a fear all beings share. Humans feared it too. We tried to escape it by creating children, by spreading life across the galaxy. But we learned that legacy is not about what you take. It is about what you give. One by one, the other leaders spoke. They shared their fears, their hopes, their secret dreams for their people. They wanted to feel safe. They wanted to be understood. Each species carried wounds that wars could never heal. And through it all, the humans listened. They did not offer solutions. They did not make promises. They simply witnessed the pain that had been hidden behind centuries of conflict. When the last leader had spoken, stood one final time. "We cannot give you peace," he said. "Peace is not something that can be given. It must be built slowly, with hands that have learned to create instead of destroy." He looked at each leader, holding their gaze for a long moment. "But we can offer something else. We can offer our presence. We will not lead you. We will not guide you. But we will walk beside you for as long as you will have us." The Emperor rose from his seat. His massive body moved toward, and for a moment everyone tensed. But instead of attacking, the Emperor knelt. It was an act that shocked every being in the room. The ruler of the largest empire in the galaxy, kneeling before a fragile human. "I have conquered worlds," the Emperor said quietly. "I have destroyed armies. I have never known fear in battle. But you terrify me, human. Not because of what you might do, but because of what you make me see in myself." He looked up with ancient eyes. "I do not want my people to be conquerors anymore. I want them to be builders. I want them to create something that lasts longer than war." Reached out and placed his hand on the Emperor's scaled shoulder. "Then build. We will help you if you let us." One by one, the other leaders rose. No treaties were signed that day. No grand declarations were made. But something had changed. Something old and heavy had begun to lift from the galaxy. The war was not over. But for the first time in 3,000 years, there was a chance for something better. And it had started with a simple question. 6 months had passed since the meeting on the neutral station. Stood on the balcony of her home on the colony world of, watching the twin suns set over the purple mountains. The air smelled of flowers and rain. Children played in the streets below, their laughter rising up like music. The war had ended, not with a great treaty or a moment of surrender, but slowly, quietly, one decision at a time. Ships had returned to there. Soldiers had put down their weapons. Leaders had begun talking instead of threatening. It had happened so gradually that many people did not even notice the change. But noticed, she had watched it happen, and she understood why. The humans had not ended the war. They had simply made it meaningless. With humans watching, no species wanted to be seen as the aggressor. No leader wanted to be the one who chose violence in front of beings who had endured of pain without striking back. Pride, which had once driven them to conquer, now drove them to show restraint. Competition, which had once led to destruction, now led to cooperation. It was almost embarrassing, thought. The galaxy had spent thousands of years proving its strength through war. Now it was proving its strength through peace, all because someone was finally watching. A knock came at her door. She turned and smiled as she saw her visitor. Vance stood in the doorway looking tired but content. He had aged in the past months. His hair had more gray in it now. But his eyes were still warm, still patient, still carrying the weight of ages. "You look well," she said. "As do you." He joined her on the balcony, looking out at the sunset. "This is a beautiful world. Your people have built something wonderful here." "Our people," corrected gently. "We are all connected, are we not? That is what the ancient records taught me." Was quiet for a moment. "You never told the others about that, about what humanity did, about the uplifting." "No, I decided it was not the right time. Perhaps it will never be the right time." She looked at him carefully. "You did not want them to know either." "No," agreed. "They needed to see themselves as equals, not as children. The truth might have helped some, but it would have hurt others. Old wounds do not need to be reopened." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the colors change in the sky. Finally, asked the question that had been on her mind for months. "What will the humans do now? Will you return to Earth? Will you build your civilization again?" Shook his head slowly. "No, we discussed it, all of us who woke up. We decided that we do not want to be separate anymore. We do not want to be special. We want to be part of the galaxy, not apart from it." "What does that mean?" "It means we are scattering. Small groups of humans are settling on every world that will have them, not as leaders or teachers, but as neighbors. We will live beside your people, work with them, learn from them. We will be part of the community instead of standing outside it." Felt surprise wash over her. "You are giving up your world, your home." "Earth will always be there. Someday, when the galaxy has truly healed, perhaps we will return. But for now, we are needed elsewhere." He smiled softly. "And honestly, we are tired of being alone. 4,000 years of sleep is a long time. We want to be around others again." She laughed. It was a warm sound full of genuine joy. "Then you are welcome here, all of you, that would be honored to have human neighbors." Over the following years, the galaxy transformed. Humans spread to every corner of known space, but they never tried to lead. They worked in fields alongside farmers. They built ships with engineers. They taught children and learned from elders and slowly became part of the fabric of galactic society. The changes were small at first. A human mediating a dispute between neighbors. A human asking questions that made people think differently about old problems. A human simply being present at difficult moments, offering patience instead of judgment. But small changes added up. Conflicts that would have become wars were resolved through talking. Resources that would have been fought over were shared instead. Species that had been enemies for generations discovered they had more in common than they thought. On the former battlefields, memorials were built. Humans attended every ceremony, standing quietly among the grieving families. They never spoke at these events. They did not need to. Their presence was enough. It reminded everyone that the universe was watching, that their choices mattered, that there were beings who believed they could be better. 10 years after the awakening, a great celebration was held on Earth. For the first time since the ancient quarantine, representatives from every species were invited to visit the human. Ships from across the galaxy gathered in orbit, looking down at the blue and green planet that had given birth to their creators. was among the visitors. She walked through forests that had grown over ancient cities. She saw mountains and oceans and deserts, all wild and beautiful. And everywhere she went, she found humans and aliens together, talking and laughing and working side by side. She found in a garden near one of the old vault entrances. He was teaching a group of young how to grow vegetables. The sight was absurd. The fierce warrior race, known for conquest and destruction, learning to tend tomatoes from a fragile human. But the young listened with complete attention, their golden eyes focused on his gentle hands. "You have done something impossible," said when the lesson ended. "You have changed the galaxy without firing a single weapon." Shook his head. "We did not change anything. The galaxy changed itself. We just reminded them that change was possible." "You are too modest." "Perhaps." He wiped dirt from his hands and looked up at the sky, where hundreds of alien ships orbited his. "When we went asleep, we believed we were the problem. We thought that without us the galaxy would find peace. We were wrong. The galaxy did not need us to leave. It needed us to stay, not as rulers or guides, but as family." Thought about her grandfather, who had died trying to stop a war that should never have happened. She thought about all the beings who had suffered over thousands of years, fighting over old grudges and forgotten fears. And she thought about the future, stretching out before them like an endless sea of stars. "What do you think will happen next?" she asked. Smiled. It was a tired smile, but also hopeful. "I do not know. That is the wonderful thing about the future. It has not been written yet. But I think, for the first time in a very long time, the story might have a happy ending." Years later wrote the new history of the galaxy. She spent decades gathering stories, interviewing survivors of the war, documenting the slow transformation that had followed. When it was finished, she called it The Awakening. But the book was not about humans waking from their long sleep. It was about something much larger. It was about the galaxy waking up, waking from a nightmare of fear and violence that had lasted waking to see themselves clearly, perhaps for the first time. In the final chapter, she wrote about a question. It was the question that had asked the leaders on that first day, the question that had started everything. What do you want to become? For 3,000 years, the galaxy had answered that question with war and conquest. Species had defined themselves by what they could take, what they could destroy, who they could defeat. They had believed that strength meant power over others. But the humans had shown them a different kind of strength. The strength to endure without fighting back. The strength to listen without judging. The strength to believe in others even when those others had forgotten how to believe in themselves. The last words of his book became famous across the galaxy. They were carved into memorials and taught to children, and repeated at gatherings for generations to come. The awakening was never about humans returning to the stars. It was about all of us learning to see ourselves as the humans saw us, not as enemies or competitors or threats, but as family, as children of the same universe, capable of incredible things if only we had the courage to try. The humans asked us what we wanted to become, and when we finally found the courage to answer honestly, we discovered something wonderful. We wanted to become better, and together we did. The stars continued to shine over a galaxy at peace, not a perfect peace. There were still arguments and disagreements and old wounds that would take generations to heal, but it was a real peace, built on understanding instead of fear. And somewhere on Earth, in a garden that had once been a battlefield, an old human sat among friends from a dozen different worlds, sharing stories and laughter under an endless sky. The conflict was over. The awakening had just begun.